Welcome to the Social Studies Show, where we dive deep into the intersection of advertising, culture, and creative careers. On this episode of the Social Studies Show, we have Omari McNeil, Associate Director of Content Partnerships at Canvas Worldwide for Genesis Motors America. Omari works at the intersection of luxury, culture, and multi-platform storytelling, helping shape how Genesis shows up across television, digital, social, and experiential spaces. Working inside luxury advertising, Omari takes us through the ins and the outs of the industry and what comes with that responsibility. Thank you so much for joining us, Omari. And I'm just going to dip right into the questions. When we talk about luxury today, it's no longer just about price or heritage. It's about who gets to define taste and cultural relevance. From where you sit, how does representation and influence shape modern luxury?
I mean, I think it's almost like inherent in the question. And thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. Modern luxury, it encompasses so much more experience. So I think you can't really define modern luxury without having some understanding of like intersectional experiences, diversity. What does luxury look like in different contexts? How do people translate that? How does luxury feel? And I think all of those things are so subjective that to not have as various of a view as you can to that topic, or at least try to at least see what those different perspectives could be, you're instantly stifling your ability to fully articulate luxury. So I think the best part about it is that because everyone translates it differently, there's an opportunity for it to always have nuance. I don't think it gets stale easily. I don't think with the billions of people on the planet that there is just the opportunity for it to just for the spark or the curiosity or something that's a little bit different from each person to just kind of die out. So I think that's the exciting piece about modern luxury, is that it's being redefined to being a lot less rigid, a lot less structured. It's allowing people who haven't typically been able to see themselves put in luxury spaces due to what was deemed more palatable to now be kind of pushed against that narrative. And we're seeing people be like, well, I don't need you to give me an okay to be luxurious. I don't need you to give me the okay to kind of co-sign what spaces I'm allowed to inhabit and how I'm able to experience those things. And I think the best part is that people are defining it for themselves, but then in their own self-definition, we're just seeing more expressions of luxury.
So with that, and I know you've got a varied background, but I would love to know how you found your path into luxury, because I know you're from Chicago, and then you lived in Seattle, and then you've worked in LA, and you worked for a variety of brands. Can you take us a little bit through that journey for yourself, and then how you kind of found it? And then once you kind of found that place, how you put your stamp on it?
Yeah, so I've always had an interest in fashion. So I think, and entertainment. I think those are kind of, I understood, like I enjoyed pop culture, being from the Midwest, Chicago, and then having like an affinity towards like LA and Hollywood and the glamour of all those things. There was always an interest in celebrity culture and that kind of, that intersection of what fashion meant and how it communicates, and all those things were interesting to me. Mm-hmm.
Do you name a person who was like, you were like kind of like you, that was your like shining star of like, oh my God, I see this person, and like all of a sudden either wanted to emulate or wanted to find more about? Like, who was that in like your youth?
I don't know if there was one figurehead, because to be honest, and I appreciate my parents for this, I was instilled with personal self-confidence early on. So it was a lot about like, what was I cultivating in me? What was kind of like the image that I was trying to portray? So it might have been, it's a self-focused answer, but I do feel like there was, like, I definitely took like inspirations from people. Like, I think there was always like, okay, I think Pharrell is cool. I want to dress a little bit nerdy, and I want to have a little bit of like a Taylor type of look. But then I also think he had like a scare edge. So I remember I liked that. But then I thought like Khalees, she was my first time seeing a Black artist who was also subversive, and she was screaming on a track, and she had pink hair, and she was wearing whatever she wanted. So, and then even then going like more recent, then there's like Solange, and I feel like she always has kind of pushed the envelope. And so I think I've taken cues, or Tracy Ellis Ross, another person who is like, I can see like she enjoys getting dressed. It's fun for her. It feels fun to watch her get dressed. I want people to feel like if I walk into a room, they're like, wow, that outfit is bomb, but also that was exciting. So I think there was things I took from people, and I understood less about like, ooh, that piece, I'm gonna borrow that. Is more so like the inspiration behind what was that driving force? What made you feel that way? What was that confidence thing? And I tried to put that into how my ethos to getting dressed or even how I pursued fashion. So it was always an interest. And I then went to college in Los Angeles, and within kind of navigating what I wanted to do or who I wanted to be, I knew I was an experiential learner. So I was like, let me kind of get hands-on as early as I can. So I worked in PR, and then I went into television production, and I was then able to work there for a little bit. And then I went into fashion, which specifically like within digital marketing within fashion. So I was able to work specifically for a company that made to measure suits, and we were making suits for RuPaul. So that was an awesome experience. So seeing like a full custom experience, especially for a celebrity who is so larger than life and truly iconic in so many facets, and then being part of such really big moments was awesome to see. It was great to see RuPaul in their element, and also then great to take little cues of like, what were these things that made this experience powerful for me? What did I leave kind of like wanting to emulate more of? How even like this stature kind of change? You know, it's just things I learned in that experience that really kind of stuck with me and resonated. And then finally, I think taking all of those like cumulative experiences, I was, as a lot of people were, laid off in the pandemic, and was grateful to have then found my current role, which is branded partnerships and content partnerships. And I think where that really is a cool intersection of all those career paths, because it takes the production element where I'm able to be on sets and understand, like from a client perspective and from a production perspective, like who's on set, what are their roles, how can I be best supportive, how does everybody kind of feel communicated and heard throughout the process. I also think from a fashion standpoint, I always love that fashion can be part of everything. I think it's important. I think it's intrinsic. I think it communicates. And I think the fact that I can have a stance and I can have a point of view and I can have a reference to something and I can see, oh, this is because of this. I think all of that lends well to the job that I'm in. And it also allows the creative process to still be fun for me. I don't think I could do it if it wasn't fun. I don't think I could do it if it wasn't expressive. And for me, fashion communicates. I think narrative is important. I think showing and showcasing different views and opinions and points of views, but also different expressions of, as we spoke about earlier, luxury or of joy, or of what does true peace look like and how does that get articulated within what I do. All of those things are fun to me because it kind of allows you to create a world and allow that world to really be narrative and custom, if you will.
So I have a thing, and I want to get back to one of the things you said, that like it has to be fun for you and it has to be resonating, and you have to take ownership, but also there's a risk in that. And one of the projects I want to talk to you about is when you did the Genesis Worldwide launch with Winnie Harlow in London. And how do you keep that fun, that sense of like, as enjoyable as a pleasurable moment, when you have so many metrics and so many people, and you have so many kind of people that you have to like tick off to make this a success? And how's your process to go about that? How do you keep your sanity and keep it fun in those moments?
Yeah, I think, well, in that example, so we, with Genesis, we were able to work with Vogue World London, which was amazing. It was essentially like this cumulative experience where it was fashion, and art, and music, and culture, and dance, and all these elements coming together to really show this expressive story of London's artistic history and how it comes to life today. And being part of it was, one, exciting because, again, as you hear, I'm passionate about fashion. I enjoy it, and it's a world that I'm familiar with. So having that kind of inroad through a vehicle company was amazing, because that wasn't the way I thought I was going to be working with Vogue. So it was cool to have that be the inroad. But to give some context, we were looking for a model that was going to be essentially the representative of the brand globally, knowing that it's such a global event. There was all these eyes on it, and it really was highlighting kind of who is new now next in fashion, culture, art, music, etc. And so I wanted to make sure that, one, from a global perspective, we felt like the person representative of us is noteworthy, interesting, compelling. They are pioneering. They have a focus on like being not just like good for them, but good for humanity, someone who understands kindness, empathy. Like, I think there was a lot of things that we wanted this person to emulate, but we also wanted to make sure that we weren't just sticking to what the typical confines of what luxury or wealth or affluence or Vogue world or we wanted to make sure that we were finding someone who felt like they really embodied that, but also that was not necessarily expected. And I think it was really exciting to land on Winnie Harlow because of the fact that she not only is a Canadian model with vitiligo, or I think she's Canadian Jamaican vitiligo. She's beautiful. I know she's an entrepreneur. I know she's given a lot of even people just with various skin conditions the entrance into a modeling agency or a modeling world that they might not have felt access to before. So even that pioneering spirit was so indicative of Genesis as a brand that even that merger felt amazing to be able to connect.
Okay, so my next question is like honestly taking that down and trickling it down to a smaller level, because you and I worked together inadvertently through Sterling Shepard for Genesis, and then you've done stuff with Jules Howe with a partnership there. So how does that translate on maybe like a lower scale, but still keeping that fun, but still having impact in those kind of relationships and collaborations with those type of celebrities?
For sure. And I think even to encompass like your last question, I think even just the metrics that we're kind of like making sure that we still hit. The best part about, I think, the role that I'm able to play, or even just my role within the machine that is branded partnerships and content partnerships, is that we're able to even show like Winnie Harlow does hit those metrics. And I think oftentimes there might be an understanding of who hits those metrics the most easily or makes the most sense from a very like, standardized metric. But I think we often thankfully make decisions with so much strategic insight and data prior to who we make a final decision on, that we already have a lot of that confidence knowing like from a noteworthy perspective, this person already gets eyeballs. So I think even with your other examples of Sterling Shepard and Julianne Hough, it was awesome to work with both of them in both capacities. One, because I think in the Sterling Shepard example where we got to work together, he was both showing his life as a father and his kind of role as kind of the super dad who has a girl dad and able to really both wrangle family, but also find time for himself and find time for hobbies and pleasure and joy. And I think it was great to see that as a Black person. I love that he was able to see a Black man showing not only a great father experience and like that love there, but also like his own joy and his own independence and being able to the love of his game, the love of golf that he was able to show. It was just fun to be able to show that through the lens of this vehicle company. And I also then think for Julianne, her videos and the thing that we got to collaborate with her were I think her joy radiates in everything that she does. It's very clear that she's a fun person, she's joyful, and even just like her effervescence is absolutely like palatable. You feel it, it's tangible, it's very much in the room with you. And so it was awesome to see like how do we translate that into showing her at her best, but also like integrating a vehicle that makes sense. So she's an adventure seeker, she loves thrills, so she's able to show like this is my life going to the beach, and even just like having like a day off and what that looks like for me, and dancing in the car. And it's still simple moments that I think sometimes people don't realize like your commute does, especially living in Los Angeles. Your commute is so independent and so individual that you're often just creating a safe space for you to just kind of like take a deep breath. And it was kind of like she gave us a glimpse into what that looks like and what that was for her and how that deep breath looks like on maybe a Saturday when she doesn't have to work. So all that to say, it's fun to show those different expressions of, again, peace or joy or luxury or fun or excitement, or all those various things can be shown in a myriad of ways. And I also think by collaborating, you're able to highlight the person that you're working with while also being able to showcase the brand in a way that's honest but also beautiful.
One thing that's interesting to me is I think like you're taking this person where people might see at a different level with that, and you're making them relatable. And I think the other thing that's interesting that you see is showing the relationship with Sterling Shepard as a Black father, one, just being a girl dad, and honestly, like people don't think about it as much, but being in place of a golf course where people normally associate someone like Tiger Woods. So it's like all of a sudden entering these different spaces where you don't think or conceptualize there, but then making it relatable. So like, definitely a great job on that, just telling those stories. I love that. And then I think you had told me about another young lady that you had done an influencer job who had like really kind of knocked it out of the park. And I was wondering if you could relate her story and tell me a little bit about her.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I think the best part about even just kind of the influencer programs that I get to work on is I think we really have created a process that understands like story is so central. And I think we really think about like dynamic storytelling and narrative, and what stories have we not told. If we are saying that pioneering spirits is something that we look to kind of attract in terms of like a consumer, then how do we showcase that pioneering spirit in all different types of articulations that make sense? So I've enjoyed, like, we've worked with, I'm like a few recent creators, like we've had some fashion creators who I think have done really subversive things where they've shown like the vehicle can not only be a tool to get you to A and B, but it also is a point of inspiration. It's a point of, it could be a dressing room, it could be a spacious respite where you're like, I need a moment of peace, or it can be introspective. We've worked with visual artists Pax and Q come to mind. They're an amazing artist duo who kind of work with not only visual effects, but a lot of motion type of effects. So you're able to create, basically they're creating these visual worlds through these FX graphics and visuals, and be able to make the vehicle like it's flying and then back into the real world, and then all through kind of their own specific POV and lens. I just think the fact that we're able to showcase all these different art styles, I think we've worked, I know back in the day, we worked with an illustrator, Monica Ahanunu, and she was able to create some like amazing visuals and kind of tie that back to the vehicle. So again, I think the best part is that there really is, the well of inspiration is deep. There is really not a, I don't see an end to the amounts of stories that we can tell. It really is just the commitment to excellence, the commitment to strong narrative, the focus on showing as much and as many and as vast of the articulations as possible. And then I think at the end of the day, still having fun. I think it's important to be informed. I love making decisions that are researched and data centric, but I think the moment you lose the fun in creation and inspiration and imagination, you kind of lose the point. And so I'm excited that for me, telling stories is fun, creating worlds is fun, and collaborating is fun. And as long as those things are kind of part of what I'm doing, I'm usually going to be a happy camper for sure.
No, for sure. And I think one thing I would definitely want to talk is I like to have definitely kind of balanced stories about what's going on, and having people tell like about their ups and downs. I think for me, I'd really love to hear some real examples of projects you worked on that didn't necessarily hit the mark that you thought maybe would go there, and then why they did, and how you actually come back from that and then kind of get going on to the next project.
Yeah, I think, of course, there's some, I mean, because again, the world of like, of posting and social media and kind of even digital marketing is also subjective. It really is hard to kind of get 100%, everybody loves it, it's the best, everybody's so happy. I mean, sometimes it happens, and I'm always excited when that is the case. But I think in the times that it's like, say if we had an influencer program and there was maybe people that we didn't necessarily love, you know, maybe that, and maybe it just didn't resonate, or maybe like they didn't hit the metrics. One, I think the main thing that maybe even initially is things that maybe come to mind of things I would have changed is the earlier collaboration. I think there are some levels of us being able to kind of have some conversations earlier about like what's expectations, what even feels exciting, what feels like some, because I think oftentimes you can tell if someone hasn't been kind of like sold into something early. Like if you're kind of like trying to get them excited the whole time and you haven't kind of got that buy-in, to me, sometimes it feels like, okay, dang, we maybe haven't like aligned on that expectation early enough. And maybe there was more conversations that could have been had, or maybe just a little bit more clarity that could have been had, just so that when we are kind of in the creating ideation phase, we're not having like, oh, this could have been, I wish I would have, you know, all those second guesses. That's one. And then two, I think the thing that helped us quickly learn is that we weren't so ego driven to not be in a space where we could receive the learnings and understand how to pivot and change. I think it was important for us to realize like it wasn't just like it doesn't happen in a vacuum. All this is cumulative. We can take these learnings and this can be something that we can continue to build on. And so it's helpful to kind of lick your wounds and continue on, and not allow kind of the maybe something that didn't work so well to be the thing that informs what you're going to continue doing. If anything, it should be the thing that motivates you not to continue to have to fall into those same pitfalls. And I think ultimately, for me, I enjoy the fact that, at least with a lot of things that we work on, there's so much data coming out of it that you do get some clarity as to what worked and what didn't, and you get a little bit of some insight into that reasoning as to why.
Thank you for sharing that process, because it does show like how to keep going, keep moving on, and then like honestly just determination, but also like being able to assess and take the feedback. One of the things I was really curious about is, obviously you've been in these rooms, you've pitched a lot of ideas, you're an advocate for diverse communities, and one, honestly experimenting and looking into the arts and sharing different communities. So my question to you is, how do you show up in these rooms with these big ideas where maybe you might be the only person in the room without necessarily shrinking yourself or diminishing or diluting the idea?
Yeah. I mean, again, a little bit of a self-righteous answer, but I really do feel confident in, like, even I just feel like I'm in rooms for a reason, and I don't want to diminish myself for anything, but I also think there's several things that I kind of armor myself to even be like, okay, even if you don't feel it, something's going to communicate on your behalf. So I always make sure that I present the part, because I do think it's important for me to feel and kind of embody and look into the part that I want to play. I do speak with conviction because I believe what I'm saying. I think someone once told me, they're like, oh, you talk as you think. And at first I was like, is that bad? But I think it really was just the fact that, I mean, to their point, yes, I do. And I think there is a level of clarity and authenticity. And I do mean what I say the first time I say it. And I do believe I speak with conviction for that reason. But I also think, like, I don't come to things unresearched, or I don't come so excited for the opportunity that I don't like do a little bit of my homework or do a little bit of that shadow work, because I think it's important to still come with both the confidence but also the actual homework done so that you can stand on something. So for me, I think being in those, I think I would love to be more and more, I would like to see more various representations in the rooms that I'm in. Point number one. Two, in those times that I do find myself to be the only point of, maybe as queer Black man, mid-30s, whatever the identifier is, if I find myself to kind of be that central voice, I do sit and remind myself of, like, you're not here by accident. They're not having you here as a charity. This is not here by mistake. And you do know what you're talking about and live and operate within that knowing. So that is one. And then I also think, too, the whole point of it is collaborative. Collaboration excites me. I'm not scared to talk to people, and I'm not scared to interact. So I think that collaboration actually gives me more, like, jump into the ring energy versus like retreat and stand to the wall. So thankfully, I feel like I've also found really safe spaces to collaborate and brainstorm. So it's not like I'm learning in a space of duress. I'm feeling like I'm not only being able to come into this room confidently, but I also feel like I'm being received by a group that is, I can trust and I understand and I feel safe around. So all those things kind of help make me feel like I'm armed with what I need to show up in a way that is excellent, but also indicative of how I believe I should be showing up. And I also, again, I think, again, it's both intrinsic, but also I'm thankful to have communities around me that I feel like are safe spaces and have been supportive to me.
So to touch on that, because you've had a world of interesting people and influences that you've worked for, Zendaya, Diff, as far as the eyewear company, some of the different PR engagements, can you tell us a little bit, kind of just like a quick rundown of some of the experiences where you've taken and soaked up all these different like data points of just like people and interactions, and then made that your own, so you can go into those rooms and talk about that? Because I'd love to hear about like people who have influenced you to give you that confidence.
For sure. I mean, it's funny because I feel if there's so many, I can give a few examples. I think like Zendaya, working for her, I worked with her on her show Casey Undercover. I think what was so cool about her is, one, she is so cool. She's chill. She just knows how to be. She's a cool person. Like, and that is, it comes across, it is honest. But I think what made me so like impressed by her was her ability to always just know how to turn that energy on, that even despite she could work these very, very long days and have all these obligations. But I think it was that knowing of like, how do you turn it on? How do you kind of give what you need? Even that is very kind of helpful in pitch theater. There are days you don't really feel like you want to give your all, but it is a performance and you do have to turn that on. And I think sometimes it's really, if you're able to kind of understand like, oh, it's a switch for me, and how do I kind of give that energy in a way that allows me to be charismatic and give in this moment, but also to preserve a little of my own energy so that it feels like a performance and not like I have to give so much of my own self or be so kind of given at the end of the day and spent. So I enjoyed my experience working with her. She was amazing. I mentioned again RuPaul. It was great seeing someone who is so clarified of their power and understanding like, when I speak, you will listen. And it wasn't an ask, it was a clarified statement. And I listened, I learned. When RuPaul told the lights people how to adjust the lights, I took notes of, okay, we're gonna put the light there, we're gonna put light, like everything was so clarified. Even how they walked from getting out the car to walking into that building, I watched RuPaul do it all, and it was so clarified what they were doing. And so that embodiment of self and that clarity of one's power and how it comes across and how it's yielded, I think is impressive. It's why I'm sure they have been an icon for so many decades and why they will continue to be. And then another person who I worked with at Div who was amazing was the artist Her. She was not only, I mean, her team, everybody around her had an amazing energy, and it was absolutely, she was a figurehead for that. So the fact that like she came into rooms, she was so approachable, she was easy to work with, very, very kind, understood how to, we had meet and greets and we had to do all these various things. And I know she was kind of in a whirlwind of her life, and the fact that she was able to kind of give so much, but also realize like there's humanity in all of this, even though we're working, even though we're in spaces that are high stakes, a lot of budget, a lot of people are stressed behind the scenes to make this happen. There are still human beings interacting with human beings. And the fact that she was such the central force in making sure we were grounded in that knowledge and then operated out of that and everything else. So her team was very human and tangible and kind. And she was, and her mother was there. And it was just to see that orbit of kind of kindness that she was able to create was not only beautiful to be part of, but it was impressive to know like this was something that she at such a young age was able to implement, and that it was then so clarified throughout the rest of her team. So those are three examples, but thankfully I really do feel like I have had a career that's allowed me to really collaborate with such amazing people who, I mean, I really like to take nuggets from everything. I think everybody has something that makes them so great. And I do my homework, and I do study, and I pay attention, and I write it down. My notes app is filled up, but because I just find people interesting, and I think people do things that I think can easily go unnoticed, and I do find them cool. So I'm glad to get to collaborate with so many cool people, and they've been cool back to me.
It's the little nuances of things like that and just detail oriented. And one of the things that I thought was really interesting, right, and what you're talking about with RuPaul, is it was really interesting because it took me back to the original Michael Jackson documentary where you saw him like practicing that, and just like the perfection of creating that performance and bringing something to the crowd, and like seeing himself as like a product and a performer. So I really love seeing that and understanding that in a different way, because it made me think of RuPaul in a different way now.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. So just a few more questions for you right there. One of my next ones is, what do you see the future of storytelling and representation in advertising, and how do you see yourself as a part of that?
I honestly, again, as I said earlier, I hope it continues to be the well that does not run dry. I think there's just the fact that imagination is so central to what we do, it just means that like you're creating worlds, you're creating stories, and you're co-creating. So it's rooted in a story that maybe you've never heard because you don't know this person, and you're learning their story, and then you're able to implement it. I think that is always going to be exciting for me. And as I said earlier, it's going to be something that I hope is always part of what I do professionally. And I think in advertising, I hope in all sectors that we continue to allow new people to tell more stories, because I think if we're too risk adverse, or if we're too fear-based in the decisions that we're making, or if we're only referential, we then kind of segment ourselves to not being able to realize like, oh, there also could be other things that we're just, there could be so much more to say that we are just overlooking because we're so referential. I think being referential is amazing. I think it's why I enjoy creativity, because you can go back and look at like, they did this in the 70s and then translated back like this in the early 2000s, and now we're doing it again. Like that is still, I love that. But I also think there's a forward kind of like, what can I innovate? What can I change? What can I optimize? That still excites me. So I'm hoping that the world of advertising, especially as all these cars and advertising, at least in my world with auto, there's so many cars that are just so cool that it's like you can't help but show it in a cool way because it's cool. That I hope that it just continues to be exciting. But I also hope that again we show more articulations of how these things can be used, seen, experienced, felt, loved, all those things. I hope we're able to show that in more ways, because I think the more ways, the better. And I also think it really, it, the thinking expansively like that allows you to not really be confined into like only thinking about what worked before. It really allows you to feel like, okay, there's a world of opportunity and I can be informed by what worked before without having to be confined by it.
So my question next is, looking back on it now, what advice would you give yourself earlier in your career and that you would pass on to younger creatives now?
It almost feels cliche, but I guess I tell myself, especially now with hindsight, I would just say trust the journey, because I think it's still unfolding for me. There are still things that I'm learning and getting excited about that I'm like, wow, I didn't even know that would be something that like last year I'd even be thinking would be something so I'm still feeling very open to possibility and what's new and what could come and what's continuing to evolve. But I also would probably tell myself like, you are an experiential learner and you like to get in the mud and figure it out. And sometimes that feels both confusing to you and others. Trust both your gut and your understanding of self, but also trust the fact that you're not doing anything without thought. I think sometimes because I was in it, it felt like I was kind of just doing versus like making strategic moves. Even now, there are days I'm like, what is next? But I think there is a level of just kind of trusting self, realizing if it worked, if you figured it out before, you can figure it out again. You will figure it out the next, whatever the next it is, you can always kind of do that and sit in that trust and understand that that resilience kind of comes from the consistency of doing. So all that I hope younger me would do, learn, understand, internalize. Just I think I really beat myself up on not feeling like I was doing things in a very clarified way. So jumping from career didn't feel like it was cumulatively helping me learn what I'm doing now. It felt like I was jumping from career to career and really doing my best at all those things, but not necessarily knowing what was those connective threads. And so I was again grateful to be able to now kind of looking back, see how all of those cumulatively helped me be successful in what I'm doing today.
Okay, last question. What do you look for and what does someone need to have to come and collaborate with Omari?
I love, and well, let me answer it two ways. One, to collaborate with me, I feel like I can work with pretty much everyone. I am a relentless optimist. So if you're kind of like, if it's hard to get you amped up, it might be hard for us to figure it out. But I enjoy some people who are energetic. I do, but I enjoy passionate people who get excited. I enjoy people who, even if they are adaptable, I enjoy people with stances and POVs just because I enjoy the process of hearing someone's fully thought idea and being like, oh, I never thought of it that way. And I thought of it this way, but what if maybe I enjoy that? And I also enjoy I like being on a team. I enjoy kind of working as a team. So people who feel like they're team oriented always excite me because I enjoy that, like, okay, we're going to do this and we're going to strategize this way. That kind of all hands on deck type of thing is exciting to me. So overall, I would say people who are energetic, ideally positive, and team oriented would be the best ways to collaborate with me. And then I also thankfully, I am trying to be as intentional as being in rooms that I should be in. I think I can easily, because of my excitement, can be like, oh, I want to help with that, and I want to help with that. I think I'm also clarifying, like, everything is not for me, and I don't need to be the figurehead on everything just because I'm excited about it. So I understand also too that there are certain things that I might be a better leader for, that I can kind of lean in more, and I probably would have more excitement, maybe more knowledge, and maybe more of an understanding. And so also finding places like that to lean in and excite me is fun for me. So that also, if people are in interest that I align with, it's usually like, okay, I'm going to learn from you. So I'm going to put myself in this room just because I think this could be a good collaborative experience that I could also learn.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the Social Studies Show. I definitely learned a lot. It's amazing. I love the thing I think that I would say about it is the curiosity, staying curious, confidence, man. Like I feel like you have that and you exude it, and I think it puts people at ease around you who want to work with you. And I think that's a big thing, is putting people at ease around you working with you. So again, I just love hearing your story. I love hearing how you got into your journey of advertising. And thank you so much for joining us on the Social Studies Show. I appreciate you.
Thank you for having me. This is so much fun. And again, I enjoyed my time, and even thank you just for giving me a space to like talk about the story. Sometimes it's fun. I'm like, wow, I guess I did do all that stuff. So thank you for giving me a little retrospective. I appreciate it.
Right on. Awesome. If you enjoy the Social Studies Show, please hit like and subscribe. If you found the information in the program relevant and insightful, copy the link, share it with your friends. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts, please leave a review. These small gestures help increase the awareness and growth of our show. Thank you.